ask them, what are you doing? Oh, I'm in business. Or, oh, I'm going to be a broker. Or I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to do real estate. Well, why? Well, because you can make money. I go, well, yeah, is that what you want to do? No, but if I make money, then I can do what I want to do. Not the point. And I will tell you now, if that's your mentality about, well, I'm going to be able to make enough money to do what I want to do, you'll be fucking miserable.
The millennial generation is as follows.
Welcome to
Surrounded by Idiots
Radio Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Surrounded by Idiots Radio Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Tony Dufresne, along with the wonderfully astute voice of millennial this week, Mariah Buckley-Perrick. Hey, Mariah, how are you?
I'm great, Tony. Thanks for hyphenating my last name. I enjoy that.
I don't know.
You don't know what to call me.
I don't want to piss Chris off. I don't want to piss you off. I'm just trying to play.
It's a safe bet.
I'm going right down the middle.
Love it.
I'm shooting it right down the middle. So this is where you come for news, notes, and information, all that kind of fun stuff to transform your life. Basically, we just talk about different life skills and hacks and whatnot to get your mind clear and set and get you dialed into really what the hell you want to do. Yes, there is more than what you have now. Yes, there are better or horizons ahead, and so we want to help you to get there. Really? I mean, that's kind of what we talk about, right?
Yeah. It's great. It's a
overall.
lot of fun.
Exactly. It's a lot of fun. So as we're going into this week, I posed a question to Mariah as well as a number of my clients and some of my tribe. And the question was, what do you feel as though success is? What is success to you? And of course, as many different people as there's different opinions in terms of what success is. There are some underlying themes, and you and I have talked about that. But I want to give you some of the answers that I got about what is success to somebody. I got having what you want. I thought was success. Doing what you love. How to become successful. They say, well, you need hard work, or it's good relationships is successful, or you need grit to be successful. All that kind of stuff. And as much as I agree with those in terms of those being components of it, those are actually not really the basic, bottom line, number one secret to having life success.
Okay, I'm excited to hear. What that number one secret is, Tony.
Well, I'm going to leave that for the next show. That's this show.
Perfect.
We're done. 2 minutes and 15 seconds in. Tune back in next week when we're going to talk about the answer to the. No, there's no cliffhanger. We don't have the time, the energy, or the budget to do any cliffhangers. So the number one key, the number one success component is value. Value. That's it. Value is success. If you create value in this lifetime for yourself and for other people, then you will be successful. Now, there's a number of different ways to create value. There's also two different worlds that are happening at the same time. There's your inside world that you have in your own head and creating value within yourself, which is personal growth and development and experiential stuff and learning and working on relationships, personal relationships. There's also the extrinsic or the outside world in terms of creating value, and that's like going to work and doing your job or gaining new skills and getting promoted. Of course, you get promoted, you get paid more. Of course, if you're a woman, you get paid 75 cents on the dollar more, but let's not split hairs at this point.
But hey,
we're going to wait for a different show to talk about that one.
And please bring me back for it.
Yeah, I'm sure
you
already have that dialed in. But that's what the key to success, the number one secret to success is creating value. And I wanted to make that clear because the one thing that most of my clients come to me with is a lack of direction, or most of the time that they're in school or they've just gotten out of school and they're sort of floundering because they thought they had an idea of what their purpose was, and I'm using air quotes, or they had an understanding of really where they had a strength and family kind of pointed them gently into a particular direction, say accounting, or I don't know, it could be anything. And they got through school, and then they got the job, and they got an internship, and they're in there, and they're like, this isn't doing it for me. There's something else that should happen. Now, they come to me, or they come to any transformational coach or therapist, or I hate the term life coach with a passion, because a lot of hacks use it, but just, somebody would be able to help them out in that arena. And they start talking about what's missing in their life and how to kind of get dialed in. And what I found is the number one thing to get people dialed in is to ask that question of them. To ask the question, well, what do you feel as though it's not, you can ask, what's the purpose of life, but that's a dumb question. It's so dumb. Is it? Have you ever asked you what the purpose of life is?
Yeah, and then somebody gives some shitty response like, "Oh, happiness," and
right, or it's the
and butterflies,
right,
whatever.
or it's the back of the shampoo bottle, answer, right?
Right, exactly.
God.
I
so
know.
that wrong question, and usually the answers take you off message and off of where you're supposed to be in terms of what your focus is. The right question is, what do you feel as though is success? What's success to you? Because everybody can relate to success, and a lot of times even though they don't want to admit it, they want to be successful. And of course, 9 times out of 10, what they relate to that is having a lot of money.
Right.
Which is absolutely the wrong. Money screws things up so much I can't even tell you. Because we've created it as an external value indicator, as something that's outside of yourself in the big world. In the big world, money is used to compare everybody's value to each other. Now there is a component in there to where it kind of makes sense, because the CEO of a company does make more than the guy in the mailroom.
Right.
So there's some level of understanding in regards to what sort of value you bring to a company. Does it make it right that the CEO makes $100 million and the mail guy makes $9 an hour? I personally don't think so. Nope. I mean, I'm not a socialist, but I don't think I don't think that you need 100 million. I'm not a Gordon Gekko fan. I don't think you need 5 boats to water ski behind. But that's just me. A lot of people think it might be the other way around.
Right.
So in looking at all of that does make sense. But the money thing screws people up so much, because they think, well, I really want to, and that's why I wanted to bring you in, because you work for nonprofits, you're a nurse. You guys...
Tony knows I love to work for no money.
No money. No money. No money.
$0.
But that...
3 beans.
$0. But it brings up a really good point, doesn't it, Mariah? The fact that that so many people get out and they're so good. I've known so many good people, and I went to grad school for psych, for doing therapy and counseling, and there were so many good people in there that were really good at that. Mm-hmm. But I know a number of them didn't follow through, and they entered the workforce because they could make more money. Mm-hmm. Sure. But that's the whole thing. You have to reconcile within yourself really what value is to you. Is it like you? Let me ask you just right out. Why did you work for nonprofits? Why did you work? Why do you work as a nurse? Why do people work as social workers or teachers instead of and stay there? I mean, what's the attraction? What's the value in that for you?
So I know for me, the value in that is I know that every single day I go to work, whether it's a good day or bad day personally for me, I'm making a difference. I'm making an impact. I'm helping somebody else have a little bit of an easier life or easier day. And that to me is far more important than money. And that's not to say I don't need money. And that's not to say that I don't, kind of shriek with delight if I get a 2-cent raise. But, realistically, I think that I find value in service to others. That's where my value lies. And that's something that I know I'm good at and have always been drawn to. And it's not forced. None of it feels forced to me. When I go to work, I'm happy to be there. I don't mind going. I feel good when I leave. I feel like I'm better to my kid and to my husband because I have this in my life. Better than if I didn't do it, or if I had a different job in, corporate America doing something painstaking that I hated. So, yeah, I mean, that it feels good to me to give back and be of service to others.
Don't you find it interesting that a lot of people look at it very linearly, like very zero sum, like either you can sell your soul to make money or you can be a martyr?
Yes, I know, and I tend to do that.
Right, but that's what people do. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And if you do, and have you thought of it that way before?
I have thought of it that way before.
And how do you reconcile that?
So I feel like, and this is funny because I feel like, and I don't want to sound sexist when I say this, but if I were to poll my male friends versus my female friends, we all have very different perspectives on what we value in life and what we think we should be doing in this world. Most of my male friends find that they, are more successful based on how much money they make and how quickly they climb a ladder, right? Because their whole purpose is to provide for themselves and their families, and they feel that gives them value. Whereas the women I know most of the time, kind of have that touchy-feely, big-hearted, I feel like I need to be of service to others, and if I'm not devoted to doing something meaningful like that, then I've sold out. I've sold my soul to the devil, and I'm not being the good person I'm supposed to be. Now, interestingly, that's how I used to reconcile it in my head, that I had to do this because it's what makes you a good person. It's what you do when you give back and you have a big heart. You work in nonprofit. You work as a teacher. You do these things. I finally am in a field, though, where I will say I lied a little bit before. I do actually get paid to go to this job. I get compensated
more than $0.
Very well, in my opinion, for doing something that I love. It's the first time I feel like I'm doing something I love and I'm not being a martyr to do it. I'm not eating oatmeal every night. So I have found that there is a way to do what you love and to support yourself and have that financial piece of success or that component. And it works out beautifully. So
yeah, I always tell people if you've made a decision to do something and you do it, and then your whole thing is you come home and then you're all bummed because you're a teacher. You decided to be a teacher and you decided to put your time and effort and your value into being the best teacher that you can be. But every single time you come home, you're bent because you look at your friend Bob down the street that's driving a new F-150 and is and taking trips to Guatemala, and you're like, damn, I wish I could do that. Well, then there's a problem. And that's called cognitive dissonance, and you are having an issue. You're having an issue with really what your value is and where you should be putting it towards. And that's the one thing I try to stress to my clients. And it's really difficult because I don't come from a philosophy standpoint. I try to detach from money equaling value. I try to detach to it or from it, so where it doesn't impact my decisions. But that doesn't mean that I haven't set it up to where I do live comfortably on the outside world, because I put the time and the energy into creating enough value in a business to where I do get paid a decent amount of money. And it allows me to do the shows, and it allows me to write my book and all that stuff. So it's not a zero sum or a linear game. It's not an all or nothing thing. And a lot of people think that in order to in order to live in this existence, then I can't do this kind of stuff, where you really can, and you can balance it out. And I know that I know that nursing does pay pretty well in terms of overall, but it certainly doesn't pay like a programmer, or it doesn't pay like a software engineer, or it doesn't pay like a CEO or a middle management honk at Exxon or something. But
that's true.
But then again, that comes down to what is value to you, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters, because success is so very, very personal. Right. And that's the one thing that I really try to stress with everybody that I talk to that wants to sit down and listen, is that it's so personal, and you have to decide on your own what it means to you, and then go about making those steps to where that's where you need to go. Now, I decided a long time ago that being a, millionaire in real estate, because real estate's my background, and I've been doing it for like 30 years, and I have a decent business and stuff, and I could very easily ramp up that business a long time ago and do a lot of investing and have a lot of properties and blah blah blah. It's not that tough, really. You just have to put the time and the energy into it and create the value. But I decided a long time ago when I went back to school that this is what I wanted to do. Because I get so much more fulfillment out of helping people in this arena, because I know I have a natural it's just my natural flow to have a level of understanding, and that's why I got into the philosophy and all that. And I wanted to take that and I wanted to help people, and that to me is way worth, that's one of those things where you wake up in the morning and you think, I'm fired up to do this. Whereas, I'm sitting there going, oh shit, I got to go to some real estate meeting to close some deal on stuff. I'd be going, crap.
That I don't care about at all. Exactly.
Even if you're making a few bucks, it doesn't really matter. So
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
So you've got to dial yourself in. And I wanted to kind of circle back to something that you had said, and it has everything to do with the Maslow hierarchy of needs and the whole instinctual thing about the men thinking from the sexist thing. Which it wasn't. I think that's very appropriate, because I think it's a really good point. The point is that instinctually men were the hunter-gatherers, or the hunters, and the women were the gatherers, and you guys took care of all that stuff. And we went out and made the biscuits and then came back and then gave it to so. But why are we? It's the 21st fucking century. Why are we living like cavemen still? But that's the problem. The problem is people aren't aware of they're still living in that paradigm. They're still and I still suggest everybody go and look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
I love Maslow.
And figure out where the hell you stand. Because if you're in the first two levels and you don't want to be, then start to elevate yourself above that. Because the whole my entire purpose of doing what I do in counseling and coaching and writing and in you and I doing the show and all that crap is to get people above those levels. Is to get people into that self-actualization, to get people in terms of understanding and kind of rising above the matrix and seeing how all this crap goes on, and you're like, I don't want to be a part of that anymore.
Right, exactly.
Because it's so constricting and it's so stressful. Stress comes from forcing yourself to live within a system that doesn't conform to who you are.
Right.
Period. That's what stress is. So if you can understand and detach from that and realize that is not the dictator of your feelings or the dictator of your life, and you have a level of control and understanding in regards to what's going on with that, then it really relieves stuff. It takes the pressure totally off. Does it not?
It does. And I feel like that, Chris and I have talked about this, because he's absolutely a hunter, and he feels very much like, just because of how he was raised, that he had a dad who primarily worked and mom primarily stayed at home, and so that was sort of the setup. Mom took care of everything in the home, the kids and all their activities. Dad went out and made the money, and so we've had conversations numerous times where he truly feels like it's his duty as a man, as a husband, as a father. And it's hard for me because I come from a background where both my parents worked. They both had equal jobs. There were times when someone was out of work and someone wasn't, and they helped each other out, and it went back and forth. And so I have time and time again kind of made that point that this isn't all on you. I want you to be just as happy in your career. If it means I need to step it up and work more to help while you figure that out, let's do it. But I think that it's not something someone else can tell you. I think deep down, a man or a woman has to come to grips with that on their own and really believe it. And that's
what it comes down to. And I have to say, for the record, the Peg and the Kev, both the energy that they give off is exactly that. Yeah. They give off as a very symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
In terms of that.
They have each other's backs.
And what a great example.
Yeah. Exactly.
It
was an awesome example.
For kids and for other people and stuff to be able to give that up. But that really comes down to the point. And the point is that it's these paradigms that we live in. It's the dogma that we follow, and you don't have to follow it. The first 1.5 sessions I have with clients is usually trying to strip them away from these beliefs that they have
Right.
of these finite rules that exist, which they don't. They don't exist. None of these things exist. They just exist in your mind because you were brought up with them, and they're boundaries that you're living within. But that's where the frustration comes in, and that's why they finally start looking, and they contact. It takes a lot to contact a stranger online as a coach or a therapist, or even talking to it. Does it not? Even talking to a friend and saying, "Hey, do you guys go to a couples therapist, or do you guys, And you go, yeah, and then here's the number, and then calling them. It takes a lot, and everybody understands that that's the case, but that also is a good sign, and the sign is that you're actually ready to take that next step, and you're creating value, and again, it comes down to value,
right?
So I wanted to ask you: do you have a personal story about about a success that you had, and then how that sort of brought about an increased level of value that you either brought somewhere or you generated within yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I think my whole past, 7-year journey has been exactly that. So, for those who don't know, when I first got out of college, I went directly to law school because, of course, that makes perfect sense. What the hell else was I supposed to do with a Spanish and Latin American Studies degree? I don't know.
Seems reasonable to me.
Yeah,
right.
I don't know. I don't know what to do, and I know that I need to have a job, and I need to make money, and let's just go to law school. Mm-hmm. And I could get into law school. I'm smart, so I got in, and I went, and I hated it with a fiery passion. And
when did you know that? When did you know that you hated it?
Within about a week. Within
about
a week.
What was it that tipped you off that you were not on your path?
I was sitting in a class, and the professor asked us if you were representing O.J. Simpson and you knew deep down in your gut that he was guilty, but he was your client, could you fight for his innocence? Raise your hand if you could do it. And the whole class, except for me, raised their hand.
No shit, really?
The whole
everybody
class,
raised their hand?
Everyone raised their class. Yep, that's your job as a lawyer. All of them were raised by attorneys. They all had families. Texas.
Lawyers.
Need I say more?
Lawyers.
Sorry, friends in Texas. And so when he said, and who couldn't do it, who would drop the case? And I raised my hand, and he said, if you just raise your hand, you might want to reevaluate. And
you were the only one in class?
Yep.
Wow.
And so I went home, drank some wine, listened to some Celine, and then said, you know what? He makes a good point. I think I'm out. I can't do it. I have far too many morals to be able to fight for something I don't believe in. I'll never make it. I'm not a shark like that. I am a shark for things I believe in, and if I have to do things like this in my line of work, it's not for me because I'm not black and white like that. And so I left and I floundered for a bit, and I went through what my sister Tara likes to call my dark phase, where I wrote a lot of songs and poems and read a lot of.
You see, you went through a lot of process. How about your parents, the people around you that supported you into law, that expected you to go through law? How did that work?
Oh God. So they were actually incredibly understanding. When I finally called my parents, and I am a kid that has never quit a thing in my life. Like, I was that kid that, like, to the end, I made it to the end. I never quit a job. I never quit an activity. And so when I called my parents and said, I hate it so much that I want to cry every day, I'm out. I'm done. And my mom said, okay, we'll book a flight and come back. And God love them, they booked a flight within days and drove that car all the way back. They had just driven me the whole way across the country.
Wow.
They furnished my apartment, they helped me get set up, and they came all the way back and lugged my ass home.
Wow. See, that's
amazing.
That's amazing support, and that's something that I know from dealing with clients in the past, that they didn't have that, and it was actually the opposite, to where they got pressured into staying into something that they knew for a fact it was not aligned with them at all. Yeah. But they stayed through it. But then, you know how much just just bad juju that generated
No,
with
it's
them?
terrible. They're so resentful. You're
Oh,
so resentful of
it's
yourself and
incredible,
everyone
isn't it?
around you. I was so lucky. I did not think my parents were going to take it that well, to be honest. But they were very kind, and so I
So you went through your dark phase.
Went through my dark phase, and magically found after working at an insurance company, my dream job at Make-A-Wish, which I love, love. But I was struggling with life balance. I was working a lot of hours, not making very much money, and was getting a little burnt out, and thought, I love working with kids and I love helping them, but I got to find a better way to do this. This isn't quite enough. I don't think I can sustain this long term. And so I kind of had a little come to Jesus with myself that pediatric nursing is what I wanted to do. That was what I love most about my job, was meeting the patients, working with the doctors and nurses. And so began the 7-year-long journey of prereqs and waitlists and school and boards and you name it. And I truly, what I have said to friends who ask me, what should I do with my life? Or should I do what you're doing? Do you like your job? I always say it's personal to me, but I absolutely love my job. I love the line of work I'm in. And for the first time in my life, I'm not wondering what's next.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to build what I have instead of figuring out how to get out of it and get on to something else. I'm trying to figure out how to take on more and grow within the place that I'm currently at.
Which is a really good sign you're at where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
Where you want to be.
Where you want to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You're aligned. You're on your path. You're aligned, and that's a really, really good sign. Now, for the people that aren't and they're still dealing with this, of course, there's more than two ways to go, but two obvious ways to go. It's obviously you can do the whole chuck everything and drive back cross country and go through your dark phase.
Yeah.
And black lipstick and there's a lot of black happening, I would assume at that time. Yeah.
A lot of black.
Or sort of, I guess, just live out of integrity.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because I've known so many people that have gone through and I asked them, what are you doing? Oh, I'm in business. Or, I'm going to be a broker. Or I'm going to do this. Or I'm going to do real estate. Well, why? Well, because you can make money. I go, well, yeah. Is that what you want to do? No, but if I make money, then I can do what I want to do. Not the point. And I will tell you now, if that's your mentality about, well, I'm going to be able to make enough money to do what I want to do, you'll be fucking miserable.
Yes.
Because you'll have to put too much learning and too much investment into creating enough value, intrinsic value of yourself, in order to be a value to other people in something that you don't even want to be in.
Right.
So you won't be in there 100% at all.
No.
And the whole thing about thinking about money being enough of a leverage or enough of what you call it creative tension. It's that thing outside of you that pulls you towards a goal. If you think money is going to be enough, it's never, and I mean never, enough to create enough creative tension, because even when you get enough, then the enough carrot moves.
Right.
And then the
Of
carrot
course it
moves
does.
more.
Yes.
And then the enough, because you know why? Because what's a really good way to put this? But because money is just what it is, and it's a tool to be used. But if you try to characterize it in a different way, then it doesn't fit. Then when you get up there and it's like all of a sudden you get up to that, you go up the road and you get it to the end of the road and you see it, you're like, oh shit, it's like a mirage, and then it's further up. You'll never be able to catch it because it's not fulfillment at all.
Exactly.
It's an external measure of value.
Right.
It's not, and you have to start with yourself, and it has to start from internal.
Right.
You've got to start and deal with what's important to me, and
be
create
honest
that level
about it.
But that's the whole point. But I got to tell you, Mariah, how many people do you know that can't be honest with themselves?
I can't tell you how many people that just I have so many friends that ask me on a daily basis, what do I do with my life? What kind of a job should I
They're
get?
asking you.
I have never, and I'm not judging them for this. I think that, I'm always flattered when people come to me for advice. I think it's great that they feel that I'm insightful enough about the world and about them to kind of have an idea. But it's so hard for me because I truly have never consulted really with anyone about what anyone thinks I should be doing. And maybe that's just me personally, because I've always had a very good self-awareness. Like, I've got a pretty decent level of self-awareness. But I've never had to say, okay, well, what kind of a job should I get? What kind of a nurse should I be? What do you think I'd be good at? Blah, blah, blah. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I know what I love and what I don't. And I don't need to run it by anyone. And so when people ask me that, I always say, I can't tell you what's going to make you happy. What is making me happy might, and I've had friends who will get a similar job to what I'm doing, or go in, or say, oh, nonprofit sounds great, I'll get into that. And I warn people every time, don't do it just because I tell you I enjoy it. Because Chris enjoys being a pharmacist some days. I don't want to be a pharmacist at all.
Right.
Like, there's not one part of that sounds good to me. But he finds joy in certain areas and aspects of his job that wouldn't be fulfilling for me. So we cannot compare to one another. You have to figure it out on your own. And people can talk it through with you, but ultimately, no one else can tell you what's going to give you value.
No, you always know immediately where somebody is if they come out and ask you, well, what should I do? If somebody asks me that, if a client asks me, well, what should I, I'm like, oh, man, you got a lot of work to do. Well, the first thing you have to do is stop everything and start to work on gaining a level of self-trust. I mean, because that's really what it comes down to. If you don't have a level of self-trust at all, and you can get, I mean, it's not hard to get. You just have to put the time and the effort into working on it. It's like a muscle. But if you don't have that, you're doomed, because you can't ask anyone else what would work for you.
Right.
And if you go to a therapist, or if you go to some life coach or some whoever, and you ask them, what should I do, and they tell you what you should do, then you should immediately run for your life.
Run.
Because they have no business telling you what you should be doing. I've never told anybody what they should do in my entire life, because it's not my job to do that. It's their own. But if they do tell you that just means that they have to work on their internal value system.
Now, Tony, let me ask you a question, since you usually ask the questions. In your line of work, why do you think some people have a really good sense of self-trust and awareness, and other people have like zilch? They have
childhood.
Nothing. You think?
Yep.
And how does and now as a parent myself, how does a parent help instill self-trust into their child? What tools do we give a child to help them believe in and their own thoughts and values?
Create an environment in certain circumstances where you have the ability to give them some level of power of self-direction. And creating certain scenarios to where you give them the option of making the choice and following through.
Okay.
Easy.
I like it.
That's
All
it.
right, done.
Yeah, that's
All
it.
right. Perfect, done.
That's
Childhood
it.
in a nutshell.
From a child development scenario, that's what it is. And there were so many people that were raised in a more of the what was called the rod than the more the stick
Spare
than the
the
carrot.
rod, spoil the
Yeah. to where seen and not heard type of a thing.
Yes.
To where kids were berated for not knowing, and shut up, you're just a kid, and not giving them the ability to make any decisions. It's and the worst thing you can possibly say is because I told you, because I said so. I think saying because I said so is horrific. And it doesn't allow the child to attempt to have any level of comprehension in terms of the reasons for something. Now, you don't have to go into this wide, and a lot of times kids will start manipulating it if you use it a lot.
This is true.
Depending upon the kid, and they will. Of course, they're kids, master manipulators. But
for sure,
you've got to allow your child, give them a little rope, allow them to stumble, allow them to fall, allow them to learn from certain little scenarios where they fail. Because that's where character is built. And if you don't allow that, and if you don't allow them to make certain choices and to follow through on the consequences of those choices, this is what you end up with. You end up with somebody who gets up to a point where now all of a sudden they're supposed to be independent, and they have no trust in making decisions at all.
On their own, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what do? They find somebody that's a parental figure, and I'm using air quotes again, like yourself. Because you give off the air of having that level of groundedness because how you were brought up,
right?
And so they'll come to you and they'll say, oh, what should I do? You have, seems like you. Anytime people says that, you're like, oh God. But how many times does that happen? And first of all, my life is a dumpster fire, same as yours.
We all are
same
working
as
in a dumpster fire.
Everybody else's. We all are constantly trying to extinguish the ever glowing embers of our dumpster fires. And sometimes,
ain't that the truth?
And sometimes, as you go to sleep, somebody puts more kindling in there, and the next morning it's an inferno, and you gotta. But that's how life is, and if you think it's any different, you're nuts. That's just the way that it is. Even for people that seem to have their shit totally together, they're always dealing with stuff. Mm-hmm. So but in people coming back and talking about that and asking you that, the first thing that obviously anybody should say. Now, if you're the person that's asking that, like, oh, what should I do with myself? Then check yourself before you ask anybody that, and understand that's your damn responsibility. Mm-hmm. Now, it's easy to say, but you've got to take a step back and work on developing your inner system, your inner trust system. Because everybody has the ability to make decisions that will benefit themselves. Everybody does, unless you have a physical disability where literally your brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Right. Then you cannot. But other than that, everybody has the same abilities to be able to sit down and to work on their own system of support within themselves, because that's where the key is. And again, some people come from a less advantageous position to where, because the development at that time was pretty crappy because their parents didn't support them building their own little, inside the Statue of Liberty, all the girders and the stuff to hold the thing up. There's none of that. It's like a hollow Halloween chocolate rabbit. Mm-hmm. It's a chocolate bunny. No, it's not good because you can't support yourself with that, and that's why you're always asking other people, what should I do? And that's what it comes down to. Okay. That was a long-winded answer.
No, but I liked it.
But ultimately, that's, as a parent, that's the key. The key is to give your child some space. Set up opportunities and scenarios where they have to make certain decisions. Don't give them too many choices, because then the paradox of choice happens and kids freak the fuck out because they can't, because their prefrontal cortex isn't developed. But
underdeveloped.
If you give them two choices with two different consequences, allow them to follow through, make the choice, and then to deal with the consequence. That will give them that grounding. That will give them the foundation to start building their internal trust system.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
And there you have it. So, and that brings us to the end. I mean, that's unless you have anything else to add.
No, I mean, I love this topic. I think it's a great one. When I hope more people can start listening to themselves and trusting themselves, because man, life is long and painful if you can't be happy doing what you're doing.
And that's the key, Mariah. And we talked about this before. It doesn't have to be as tough as people make it.
No.
It just really doesn't.
I would like to point out, and I've had this conversation with friends too, that being fulfilled doesn't mean that every moment of what you're doing is fun. Let's just throw that out there, because people say, well, I don't like work every day. It sounds like you just like love work. People you're always so happy, you just love being here. And I'm like, no, if you were to be a fly on the wall, you'd see me making the rope around my neck, walking up and down the halls all fired up about something. It doesn't mean I don't love what I do, but, I have my moments, too, where I like to take my computer and shock it. So, lest we forget that fulfillment and happiness and all of that jazz do not mean every single moment is rainbows and fairy tales.
Outstanding point. I'm writing my next book. My next book, the entire book is going to be on the happiness myth. That's what I'm going to write on.
I love it.
It wasn't a thesis, but I did a very long, extensive paper on why happiness is really messing people up, and because it's not something to try to attain. The happiness is not something it's a fleeting emotion. It's not a state. It's not a long-term state. Happiness is an emotionally based thing. It's fleeting, and it shouldn't be something you should plant your flag in. No. It's fulfillment. It's not happiness. But that messes people up so much that I can do an entire book on that.
Oh, I can't wait to read it.
Entire book. So the first book, the Surrounded by Idiots book, which will be out in a month.
Woohoo!
It'll be out in a month before the end of the year, where people say I have to do something with my life, and so I'm hoping to time it right. Where I can get it out onto Amazon before people are doing the whole New Year's resolution crap.
Yep.
And it is crap because you can do that at any time. You don't need to start January the 1st. Yep. It's an arbitrary date, but why do you do it? Because, I don't know, that's a whole different thing. I'm not going to get wrapped up on it.
That's another topic.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm going to time it to where I'm trying to help people as much as possible. Again, success is value. I've worked for 20 years in trying to, attain a certain level of expertise in this, and now I'm taking that and I'm trying to create value without any whatsoever expectation of any monetary compensation at a certain level for any of this, because that's not my goal. My goal is just to impact as many people as possible, and that's why I wrote the book, and that's what I want to do. So the Surrounded by Idiots book will be out in December, hopefully. I'm trying to get the videos done because I'm doing an interactive thing. I'm making videos.
Ooh, all right.
Oh, it's just fascinating. But it will be out. But the second book is definitely going to be about happiness and the myth and all that crap. So you any new blogs from And Mango Makes 3?
No, but I am working on a little side project right now. Just did a monkey survey online, and there is a blog post and possible project reveal coming down the road here shortly.
Okay, terrific. Ooh, well, if you have anything you want me to link in the show notes, then send it over.
Will do.
And I'll put it in there. So remember, you can go to javabud.com to get everything. Also iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher for the podcast. The videos are always up on the website as well. And if you want to subscribe, you can actually get a little freebie PDF if you go to the website. And you could then, all the podcasts I actually send out every single week to all these subscribers. So bonus time. Free content. Value. See, you got to walk the walk, right? If you're going to sit here and bullshit about stuff like this, you got to walk the walk because people will call you out in a second. Although apparently that doesn't matter because you can be somebody like the president and talk all sorts of blatant lies and bullshit, and people still go, "Oh my God, he's amazing." That's a whole. And let's just end it at that.
And on that note,
I want to say good night, world.
Good night.
So from Scottsdale, Arizona, and from beautiful Boston, Massachusetts, we say good night, and we'll see you next week.
Could keep my hands on myself.